The stars twisted and bent as massive ships tore through space itself. One moment there was nothing but empty darkness at the edge of Earth's solar system. The next moment, 12 enormous alien vessels hung in the void, like dark metal cities, floating among the stars. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. His reptilian face showed sharp teeth as he looked at the blue planet on his screens. Earth looked so small and peaceful from this distance. So helpless. "Report," he said to his officers. His voice was deep and rough like grinding stones. "The planet shows primitive technology, sir," said Commander Vextal, reading from her displays. "Simple satellites, basic communication systems. Their most advanced ships barely leave their home planet." Kethvar nodded with satisfaction. This would be easy. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 12 worlds in the past 50 years. Each time the local species had put up some resistance before surrendering, but humans looked even weaker than the others. "Their population?" he asked. 8 billion creatures, sir. They live mostly on the land masses of their single planet." "Perfect." Kethvar walked to the main viewing screen. "Open a channel to all human communication networks." Far below on Earth, Captain Jake Miller was drinking coffee in the command center of Orbital Station Liberty when the alarm started screaming. He nearly dropped his mug as red lights flashed across every console. "Contact!" shouted Lieutenant Tom Harris from the sensor station. "Multiple large vessels at the edge of the system." Jake set down his coffee and moved to the command chair. "How many?" 12 ships, sir. Each one is bigger than anything we've ever built." Down on Earth's surface, Commander Lisa Brown watched the same readings appear on her screens at Mission Control in Colorado. Her hands moved quickly over her controls as she opened communication channels to military bases around the world. "This is Mission Control to all stations," she said into her headset. "We have contact. Repeat, we have first contact with alien vessels." At the White House, President Rebecca Davis was in a meeting when her aide burst through the doors. The young man was breathing hard as if he had run all the way from the communications room. "Madam President," he said, "we have a situation." 10 minutes later, Rebecca sat in the Situation Room with her top advisors. General Sam Carter, a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes, pointed to the large screen showing the alien ships. "They're not responding to our communication attempts," he said, "but they're definitely scanning us." Admiral Kate Robinson leaned forward in her chair. "Our deep space sensors show they have weapons. Big ones." Dr. Alex Stone, the head of the xenobiology team, pushed his glasses up his nose. "We always knew this day might come," he said quietly. Before anyone could respond, every screen in the UI room suddenly changed. The face of Admiral Kethvar appeared, his yellow eyes staring directly at them. When he spoke, his words came through in perfect English, though his translator gave his voice a metallic sound. "Primitive creatures of Earth," he began. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world now belongs to us." President Davis felt her heart beating faster, but she kept her face calm. Around the table, her advisors watched the screen without moving. "We have studied your species," Kethvar continued. "You are weak. You fight among yourselves. You have barely learned to leave your own planet. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered worlds across this galaxy. You cannot resist us." The alien admiral paused, letting his words sink in. "You have 72 hours to surrender completely. Lay down all weapons. Prepare your leaders for transport to our ships. If you comply, we will allow most of your population to live as servants of the Empire." General Carter's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. "If you resist," Kethvar's voice grew colder, "we will destroy your cities one by one until nothing remains but ash and radiation. This is not a negotiation. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. The room fell silent. "Well," said President Davis after a long moment, "I guess we're not alone in the universe after all." Back on the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kethvar turned to his officers. "Begin detailed scans of their military installations. I want to know the location of every weapon, every ship, every soldier." "Yes, sir." replied Commander Vextal. Sir, should we prepare for possible resistance? Kethavar laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a metal chute. Look at them, Vextal. They haven't even colonized their own moon properly. Their largest ships are smaller than our shuttles. What resistance could they possibly offer? On Earth, the news spread quickly. Television broadcasts showed the alien ships hanging in space like dark threats against the stars. People gathered. In the streets, some crying, some praying, some simply staring at the sky. But in secret military bunkers around the world, a different kind of activity was beginning. Colonel Ben Walsh sat in a room deep underground, surrounded by screens and communication equipment that most people didn't know existed. Phoenix command to all black sites, he said into his secure radio. Initiate Protocol 7. Repeat, Protocol 7 is now active. Around the world, hidden doors opened in mountains and beneath the ocean floor. Systems that had been waiting in darkness for decades began to wake up. Men and women in unmarked uniforms moved through corridors that didn't appear on any public maps. Engineer Maria Santos checked her displays in a facility built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. The rock had been slowly moved into position over 20 years, disguised as a routine mining operation. Now it hung in Earth's orbit, looking like nothing more than space debris to any casual observer. All systems green, she reported. Blackout network is ready for activation. Pilot Ryan Phillips ran his final checks on a fighter that didn't exist according to any official records. Around him, 50 other pilots did the same in a hangar carved into the far side of the moon. Ghost Squadron standing by, he said into his radio. Dr. Helen Garcia smiled as she watched the Zephyrian scans pass right over humanity's most important secrets. Every scan the aliens made showed them exactly what she wanted them to see. Primitive technology, weak defenses, a species that had barely learned to reach for the stars. She looked at her colleague, Major Troy Adams, who was reviewing tactical plans that had been in development for 30 years. Think they suspect anything? She asked. Troy shook his head. They see exactly what every conqueror sees. A weak target that won't fight back. Good, Helen said, turning back to her displays. Let's keep it that way for another 71 hours. High above Earth, Admiral Kethavar reviewed the scan results with growing confidence. The humans had some orbital stations and a few small, military satellites, but nothing that could threaten his fleet. Their ground-based weapons were laughably primitive. This will be our easiest conquest yet, he told his bridge crew. Begin preparations for the invasion fleet. What Admiral Kethavar didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment longer than his empire had existed. And in 71 hours, he was going to learn the difference between looking weak and actually being weak. The countdown had begun. 60 hours remained until the alien deadline. Admiral Kethavar stood in his command center, watching the streams of human communications flow across his screens. His intelligence officers worked to decode every message, every broadcast, every signal coming from the blue planet below. What are they saying? He asked Commander Vextal. Chaos, sir, she replied, her clawed fingers dancing over her controls. Their governments are arguing. Some want to fight. Others want to surrender immediately. Their military leaders cannot agree on a response. Kethavar nodded with satisfaction. This was exactly what he expected from a primitive species facing superior force. Fear made creatures stupid and divided. On Earth, President Rebecca Davis stood before cameras in the Oval Office. Her hands shook slightly as she held her prepared speech. To anyone watching, she looked like a leader overwhelmed by an impossible situation. My fellow Americans and citizens of the world, she began, her voice wavering just enough to sound genuinely frightened. We face a threat unlike any in human history. These visitors have given us an ultimatum. She paused as if struggling to find words. I have been in contact with world leaders throughout the day. We are exploring all possible diplomatic solutions. No decision has been made about their demands. The speech continued for 10 more minutes, full of political language that said nothing concrete. To the Zephyrians monitoring the broadcast, it sounded like exactly what they wanted to hear. A confused leader trying to buy time while her world panicked. What they didn't know was that every word had been carefully chosen by Dr. Helen Garcia and her psychological warfare team. Every pause, every nervous gesture, every seemingly weak phrase was designed to reinforce the aliens' expectations. In a bunker 300 feet below the Rocky Mountains, General Sam Carter watched the broadcast on a small monitor, while Colonel Ben Walsh continued coordinating the real response. Network 7 is fully active, Ben reported. All blackout stations are online and masked. General Carter nodded. Around them, hundreds of technicians worked at stations monitoring systems the public had never heard of. Project Blackout had been 40 years in the making, designed specifically for this moment. Maria, what's your status? Ben spoke into his headset. 3,000 miles away, engineer Maria Santos floated in zero gravity inside what appeared to be a small asteroid. The rock drifted slowly through Earth's orbital space, looking completely natural to any observer. Even close-range scans showed nothing but ordinary iron and nickel. Weapons Platform Alpha is ready, she reported quietly. All systems show green. The aliens have scanned us twice today and detected nothing unusual. The asteroid was actually a hollowed-out shell containing enough firepower to destroy a city. 59 others just like it drifted throughout the solar system, placed over decades by ships disguised as mining vessels. On the moon's far side, pilot Ryan Phillips checked his fighter for the third time that day. The hangar around him had been carved from solid rock 20 years ago, during what the public thought was a scientific mining operation. Ghost Squadron, sound off, he said into his radio. One by one, 50 voices answered. 50 fighters that didn't exist on any official records. 50 pilots who had trained their entire careers for this moment. All birds ready to fly, reported his wingman, Captain Danny Rodriguez. The aliens haven't detected the hangar. Their scans pass right over us. Ryan smiled grimly. The hangar entrance was hidden behind a holographic projector that made it look like solid rock. Dr. Helen Garcia's team had perfected the technology 15 years ago. Back on the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kethvar reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Human military bases were on high alert, but their response seemed disorganized and panicked. Their space-based defenses consisted of only a few orbital platforms and some communication satellites. Sir, said Commander Vextel, we're intercepting. Heated arguments between their military commanders. They're debating whether to evacuate their major cities or concentrate their forces for defense. Let them argue, Kethvar said. Confusion serves our purposes. What about their space capabilities? Minimal, sir. They have approximately 200 small craft capable of reaching orbit. Most are cargo vessels or short-range fighters. Nothing that could threaten our ships. What the Zephyrians didn't see were the real conversations happening on quantum-encrypted channels that their technology couldn't detect. Admiral Kate Robinson coordinated with fleet commanders throughout the solar system using communication methods the aliens had never encountered. Neptune Base, this is Admiral Robinson, she said into her secure transmitter. What's your status? All systems operational, Admiral, came the reply from Commander Luke Bennett, stationed near the gas giant. The enemy has no idea we're here. They've scanned this region 4 times and detected nothing. Neptune Base was actually a massive space station hidden in the planet's radiation shadow. It served as the command center for humanity's outer system defenses, built over 30 years using resources from asteroid mining operations. Excellent, Admiral Robinson said. Hold position and maintain communications blackout. Similar conversations took place throughout the solar system. Major Troy Adams coordinated with resistance cells on Earth. Captain Amy Lewis prepared orbital bombardment countermeasures. Lieutenant Colonel Nina Park reviewed deployment plans for humanity's true fleet. Every conversation was carefully shielded from alien detection. Every movement of personnel and equipment was disguised as routine civilian activity. Dr. Alex Stone played his part perfectly, appearing on news broadcasts to discuss the aliens' demands. He spoke like a scientist, terrified by forces beyond his understanding. We must consider their superior technology, he said to reporters, his voice shaking. Resistance could mean the end of human civilization. Perhaps negotiation is our only hope. The Zephyrians recorded every word, adding it to their assessment of human weakness. Meanwhile, 48 hours remained on the countdown. Admiral Kethvar felt confident in his victory. The humans were behaving exactly as expected, arguing, among themselves paralyzed by fear, hoping desperately for a peaceful solution that would never come. "Begin moving the fleet closer to their planet," he ordered. "I want to be in position to begin bombardment the moment their deadline expires." "Yes, sir," replied Commander Vextal. "Should we prepare boarding parties?" "Not yet," Kethvar said. "Let them see our ships approaching. Fear will make them more likely to surrender without a fight." As the massive Zephyrian vessels began their slow advance toward Earth, every movement was tracked by sensors the aliens couldn't detect. Deep in their mountain bunker, General Carter and Colonel Walsh watched the enemy fleets approach on displays that showed the true tactical situation. "They're taking the bait," General Carter said quietly. "Moving into the gravity well exactly as predicted." Colonel Walsh nodded. "All stations report ready for Phase 2 activation." Around the solar system, hidden bases and disguised weapon platforms waited silently. Thousands of humans who had trained their entire lives for this moment prepared for the battle that would determine their species' fate. The aliens thought they were approaching a helpless world. They had no idea they were flying into the most elaborate trap in human history. The countdown reached 0. Admiral Kethvar stood on his command bridge watching Earth grow larger on his screens. His fleet had moved steadily closer over the past 3 days, and the humans had done nothing to stop them. No attacks, no threats. Just more desperate diplomatic messages that his translators ignored. "The deadline has passed," announced Commander Vextal. "No response from the human governments?" Kethvar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "As expected. Begin the invasion. Launch the first wave." Across the Zephyrian fleet, fighter bays opened like hungry mouths. Hundreds of sleek alien craft poured out, their weapons charging as they accelerated toward Earth. Each fighter was fast and deadly, designed to sweep away any resistance before the main fleet moved in. On Earth, alarms screamed in every military base and command center. Captain Jake Miller gripped his command chair on Orbital Station Liberty as enemy fighters filled his sensors. "All units, this is Liberty Control," he broadcast on open channels. "Enemy fighters inbound. All available craft. Launch immediately." What followed looked like exactly what the aliens expected. A handful of human ships lifted off from Earth's surface. Old cargo vessels with weapons bolted on, outdated military fighters, and civilian craft pressed into emergency service. They formed a ragged line between Earth and the approaching enemy. Commander Luke Bennett led this desperate-looking defense force. His ship was an old freight hauler called the Chicago, its hull scarred and patched from years of use. Around him, 30 other human vessels spread out in what appeared to be a hopeless last stand. "Stay in formation," Luke ordered his pilots, knowing the aliens were listening to every word. "We have to buy time for the evacuation." The Zephyrian fighters hit the human line like a hammer striking glass. Luke's people fought bravely, but they were outnumbered 10-1. Within minutes, half the human ships were destroyed or drifting with dead engines. "Human vessels, surrender now," came a transmission from the alien squadron leader. "Your resistance is pointless." "Never," Luke replied, steering his damaged ship toward another attack run. "We won't give up our world." His ship exploded in a ball of fire and metal. The remaining human defenders followed him into death, buying precious minutes with their lives. Admiral Kethvar watched the brief battle with satisfaction. "Excellent. The humans have shown their full strength, and it is nothing. Move the main fleet into orbital position." The 12 massive Zephyrian warships began their final approach to Earth. Each vessel was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons capable of turning continents into ash. They moved in perfect formation, confident in their overwhelming power. "Begin target acquisition," Kethvar ordered. "I want firing solutions for their major population centers." "Yes, sir," replied his weapons officer. "Sir, should we attempt to contact their leaders one final time?" "No. Kethvar said coldly. They had their chance. Now they faced the consequences of defying the Empire. The alien fleet moved deeper into Earth's gravity well, passing the orbit of the moon. Their sensors showed no further resistance. The pathetic human defense had been completely destroyed. That was when the trap closed. Captain Danny Rodriguez pressed a single button in his hidden command center on the moon's far side. All stations, this is Phantom Base. Execute Order 7. Repeat. Execute Order 7. Across the solar system, the asteroids began to move. What the Zephyrians had thought were simple chunks of rock suddenly revealed their true nature. Hidden engines fired, turning the asteroids toward the alien fleet. Massive railgun barrels extended from concealed ports, powered by fusion reactors that had been waiting decades for this moment. "Contact!" screamed the Zephyrian sensor officer. "Multiple large objects moving toward us from all directions." Admiral Kethvar stared at his displays in shock. The asteroids weren't just moving. They were accelerating with the precision of guided weapons. "How is this possible?" Before anyone could answer, the first railgun fired. Engineer Maria Santos smiled as her asteroid ship lined up its shot. The magnetic rails inside the hollowed-out rock accelerated a tungsten projectile to nearly 1/10 the speed of light. The round crossed the distance to the nearest Zephyrian warship in less than a second. The impact was devastating. The alien ship's shields flared and died as the kinetic projectile punched through armor that had never been penetrated before. Secondary explosions rippled along the vessel's hull as internal systems failed. "Direct hit on target 1, Maria," reported calmly. "Reloading for second shot." All around the alien fleet, more asteroids opened fire. What had appeared to be 60 chunks of space debris revealed themselves as massive weapon platforms, each one capable of destroying a capital ship. But that was only the beginning. Lieutenant Colonel Nina Park activated the second phase from her command station buried deep in the moon. Across the lunar surface, hidden launch bays opened like blooming flowers. Thousands of missiles streaked toward the alien fleet, their warheads designed specifically to penetrate Zephyrian armor. On the far side of Mars, Captain Holly Evans led her fighter squadron out of concealed hangars built into the planet's canyons. Her pilots had trained for this moment their entire careers, and their ships were nothing like the obsolete craft the aliens had just destroyed. "Phoenix Squadron, engage at will," she ordered, accelerating toward the battle. Admiral Kethvar watched, his perfect formation dissolve into chaos as human weapons struck from every direction. 3 of his ships were already severely damaged and more projectiles were incoming. "Return fire," he shouted. "All weapons, engage those asteroids." The Zephyrian fleet opened up with everything they had, energy beams and missiles filling space, with deadly light. But their targets were no longer where they appeared to be. Dr. Helen Garcia had thought of everything. Each asteroid weapon platform was protected by advanced holographic projectors that made it appear to be somewhere else. The aliens were shooting at ghosts while the real platforms continued their deadly work. "Sir," Commander Vextal's voice cracked with panic. "We're being jammed. I can't reach the outer squadrons." Captain Jack Turner grinned as his electronic warfare ship completed its mission. Hidden in the asteroid belt for the past 5 years, his vessel had been slowly mapping every frequency the Zephyrian fleet used. Now he was broadcasting on all of them at once, filling their communications with static and confusion. The alien fleet tried to retreat but found their escape routes blocked. Commander Troy Adams had positioned his Q-ships, disguised merchant vessels that were actually heavy cruisers, at every possible exit from the inner system. "This is impossible," Admiral Kethvar whispered, watching another of his ships die under the relentless human assault. "Our intelligence said they were primitive." Commander Vextal looked up from her damaged console, fear clear in her reptilian eyes. "Sir, I'm detecting more human ships approaching from the outer system. Hundreds of them." The Zephyrian admiral felt cold dread settling in his stomach. The humans hadn't been defending desperately with everything they had. They had been hiding their true strength, waiting for the perfect moment to spring their trap. Earth had never been an easy target. It had been a carefully disguised fortress, and he had led his entire fleet directly into its guns. The Zephyrian fleet was trapped and dying. Admiral Kethvar gripped his command chair as another explosion shook his flagship. Half of his 12 ships were already destroyed or crippled, and the human attacks showed no sign of stopping. Warning lights flashed red across his bridge while his officers struggled to coordinate a defense against enemies that seemed to be everywhere at once. "Status report," he shouted over the noise of failing systems. 7 ships destroyed. 3 more heavily damaged, Commander Vextal reported, her voice tight with fear. "Sir, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered before." She was right. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered worlds across the galaxy using the same basic strategy. Overwhelming firepower from massive capital ships. Every other civilization they had faced tried to match them ship for ship, weapon for weapon. It never worked, but humans fought differently. Captain Frank Davis led a swarm of small attack craft that seemed to appear from nowhere. His ships were fast and deadly, striking quickly before disappearing back into the chaos of battle. Behind him, 500 other pilots did the same, coordinating their attacks with precision that amazed even their enemies. "Tiger Squadron, hit the 3rd ship from the left," Frank ordered into his radio. "Wolfpack, take the weapons arrays on Ship 4. The human fighters moved like schools of fish, never staying in one place long enough for the massive alien weapons to target them effectively. Each small craft carried missiles designed specifically to penetrate Zephyrian armor, based on intelligence gathered over decades of careful observation. Major Cindy Taylor watched the battle from her command center, inside what appeared to be a communications satellite. In reality, her station controlled 10,000 automated drones that had been disguised as space debris for years. "Drone swarms Alpha through Gamma, engage," she ordered. The space around the alien fleet suddenly filled with small, fast-moving objects that the Zephyrians had completely ignored during their initial scans. Each drone was the size of a refrigerator, armed with a single high-explosive warhead and guided by artificial intelligence that could think faster than any living pilot. The drones swarmed over the alien ships like angry insects, exploding against hull plating and weapon systems. Individually, each explosion was small. Together, they were devastating. Admiral Kethvar tried to organize a retreat but found his escape routes blocked by ships that hadn't been there minutes before. Lieutenant Colonel Kevin White's Q-ships had revealed themselves, dropping their disguises as harmless cargo vessels to show their true nature as heavy battlecruisers. "Unknown human vessels. This is Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire," he broadcast on all frequencies. "We demand safe passage from this system." Kevin White's response was cold and final. "This is Colonel White of the Earth Defense Force. You came here to destroy our world. The only passage you'll get is to our prison ships." The human commander wasn't bluffing. Commander Sophie Martinez had deployed gravity mines throughout the system, disguised as scientific satellites. Now they activated, creating artificial gravity wells that trapped the alien ships like insects in a spider's web. "Sir," the Zephyrian navigation officer called out, "we can't break free. Something is holding us in place." Admiral Kethvar felt desperation growing in his chest. His mighty fleet, which had never known defeat, was being systematically destroyed by creatures he had dismissed as primitives. The worst part was the realization that the humans had been planning this for longer than his empire had existed. Every move his fleet made had been anticipated. Every weapon they used had a counter. Every escape route had been blocked before the battle even began. Dr. Tom Johnson smiled as he watched his jamming systems work perfectly. The aliens couldn't communicate with each other or with their homeworlds. They couldn't call for help or coordinate their defense. They were isolated and alone, exactly as planned. "All communications severed," he reported to Admiral Kate Robinson. "They're completely cut off." Admiral Robinson nodded from her command ship, which had emerged from hiding behind one of Jupiter's moons. Around her, the true human fleet revealed itself, hundreds of warships that had been waiting in the outer system for decades. "All ships, begin final assault," she ordered. The human vessels moved with deadly precision. Unlike the Zephyrians, who relied on brute force, the human fleet used coordinated tactics that turned their enemies' size against them. The massive alien ships were powerful, but they were also slow and hard to maneuver. Colonel Beth Williams led the boarding parties that attacked the most damaged Zephyrian vessels. Her Marines wore armor designed from studying alien technology, and they carried weapons that could punch through Zephyrian battlesuits. "Board the flagship," she ordered her troops. "I want their admiral alive." The Marines moved through the alien ship like ghosts, using routes that the ship's designers had never intended. Human engineers had studied captured Zephyrian technology for years, learning every weakness and vulnerability. Sergeant Chris Mitchell kicked down the door to the enemy bridge, his rifle trained on the alien officers inside. Behind him, 20 other Marines spread out to secure the command center. "Nobody move," he shouted in the Zephyrian language. Dr. Helen Garcia's team had been studying their communications for decades. Admiral Kethvar looked at the human soldiers, in shock. They were smaller than his own warriors, but they moved with deadly efficiency. Their weapons were aimed with perfect precision, and their eyes showed no fear. "How?" he whispered. "How did you know?" Captain Paul Anderson stepped onto the bridge, his uniform clean despite the battle raging outside. "We've been watching you for 50 years, Admiral. Every world you conquered, every ship you built, every weapon you developed. We've been preparing." The alien admiral sank into his command chair, finally understanding the scope of his defeat. "You let us think you were weak. We let you see what you expected to see," Paul replied. "Every conqueror makes the same mistake. They assume that because someone hasn't fought back yet, they can't fight back." Outside the flagship, the last of the Zephyrian fleet was surrendering. The ships that weren't destroyed had been crippled beyond repair. Thousands of alien prisoners were being transferred to human vessels. Commander Greg Foster oversaw the interrogation of captured officers. Each alien was questioned carefully, their answers revealing the locations of Zephyrian bases and the strength of their remaining forces. Captain Ashley Moore coordinated the deployment of humanity's reserve fleet, ships that had been hidden in distant star systems, waiting for this moment. The Zephyrian invasion wasn't just defeated, it was completely destroyed. "Sir," Commander Vextal said to Admiral Kethvar as human guards led her away. "What do we tell the High Command?" The Admiral looked at her with empty eyes. "We tell them the truth. Earth wasn't our target, we were theirs." As the last alien ships were secured, Admiral Kate Robinson opened a channel to Earth. "Mission Control, this is Admiral Robinson. The system is secure. All enemy vessels destroyed or captured." On Earth, President Rebecca Davis allowed herself a small smile. The performance was over. Humanity no longer needed to pretend to be weak. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were really capable of. The war was over before most of the galaxy even knew it had begun. Admiral Kethvar sat in a human prison cell aboard Captain Paul Anderson's flagship, staring at walls made of metal stronger than anything his empire had ever created. Through the small window, he could see the wreckage of his once mighty fleet drifting in Earth's orbit like broken toys. The door opened and Captain Anderson entered, carrying a simple chair. He sat down across from the defeated alien admiral, his expression calm and professional. "I have questions," Paul said simply. Kethvar looked up with tired eyes. "And if I refuse to answer?" "Then you refuse," Paul replied. "We're not like your empire, Admiral. We don't torture prisoners for information." The alien admiral studied the human's face, looking for signs of deception or cruelty. He found neither. "You could have destroyed my fleet completely. Why did you take prisoners?" "Because we're not monsters," Paul said. "We defend ourselves when attacked, but we don't kill unnecessarily." Over the next hour, Captain Anderson asked his questions while Admiral Kethvar slowly provided answers. The locations of Zephyrian worlds, the size of their remaining fleet, the structure of their government. The alien admiral answered honestly, understanding that his empire's fate had already been decided. Dr. Rachel Green entered the room carrying a tablet computer. She was one of humanity's leading experts on alien psychology, and she had been studying the Zephyrians for decades. "Admiral Kethvar," she said politely, "I wanted to explain something to you." The alien looked at her with curiosity. "Explain what?" "Why you lost so completely," Rachel said, sitting down next to Captain Anderson. Your empire has conquered 12 worlds using the same strategy every time. Overwhelming force applied quickly, to break enemy resistance. Kethavar nodded slowly. It has never failed before. It failed here because we weren't defending, Rachel explained. We were hunting. For 50 years we've been watching your empire expand. We studied every battle, analyzed every ship design, learned every tactical doctrine. The alien admiral felt a chill run down his spine. You were preparing specifically for us? We were preparing for anyone who might threaten Earth, Paul said. Your empire just happened to be the first to try. Rachel activated her tablet, showing Kethavar images that made his eyes widen in shock. Hidden human bases throughout nearby star systems, fleets of warships disguised as mining vessels, weapon platforms built inside asteroids across dozens of worlds. Earth's defense didn't begin at our solar system, she continued. It began 20 light years out. You passed through our early warning networks before you even knew we existed. Meanwhile, in another part of the ship, Commander Greg Foster was interrogating other captured Zephyrian officers. Each interview revealed more details about the alien empire's structure and weaknesses. How many total ships does your empire possess? Greg asked a captured ship captain. Perhaps 800 vessels across all our worlds, the alien replied reluctantly. Greg made a note on his tablet. The number was smaller than humanity's intelligence estimates had suggested. The Zephyrian Empire was powerful but not as vast as they pretended to be. In the command center, Admiral Kate Robinson reviewed reports from across the solar system. The cleanup operation was proceeding smoothly. Alien technology was being studied and cataloged. Prisoners were being processed and interrogated. Most importantly, humanity's true capabilities remained largely hidden from the rest of the galaxy. Admiral, called Commander Holly Evans from the communications station, we're receiving messages from several alien governments. Word of the battle is spreading. Kate nodded. She had expected this. What are they saying? Mixed reactions, ma'am. Some are congratulating us on our victory. Others are demanding explanations. A few sound worried about human intentions. Kate smiled grimly. The galaxy was about to learn that the balance of power had shifted dramatically. On Earth, President Rebecca Davis stood in the Oval Office preparing for the most important speech in human history. Around her, advisors made final adjustments to communication equipment that would broadcast her words across the galaxy using captured Zephyrian technology. Are we ready? She asked. Dr. Alex Stone, who had spent days helping to craft the speech, nodded. The transmission will reach every inhabited world within 72 hours. Rebecca took a deep breath. For generations, humanity had hidden its true strength from the galaxy. Today, that deception would end. The cameras activated, and President Davis began to speak. Her words were transmitted through communication networks that spanned hundreds of worlds, reaching species that had never heard of Earth before this moment. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, her voice steady and clear. I am Rebecca Davis, President of the United Earth Federation. 3 days ago, the Zephyrian Empire attacked our world, demanding our immediate surrender. Throughout the galaxy, alien leaders stopped their daily activities to listen to the broadcast that was interrupting their communications. The Zephyrian Empire believed Earth would be an easy conquest, Rebecca continued. They were wrong. Their invasion fleet has been completely destroyed or captured. Admiral Kethavar and his surviving crew are now our prisoners. On distant worlds, alien governments reacted with shock and disbelief. The Zephyrian Empire had seemed invincible. No one had successfully resisted them before. For the past 50 years, the president continued, humanity has watched the Zephyrian Empire expand across this region of space. We observed their tactics, studied their technology, and prepared our defenses accordingly. Rebecca paused, letting her words sink in across the galaxy. Earth is not a victim. We are not primitives hiding on a single world. Humanity has been preparing for this day, and we are ready to take our place among the galactic community. The speech continued for 10 more minutes, explaining humanity's intentions and capabilities. The message was clear. Earth was now a major power, and any species that threatened human worlds would face the same fate as the Zephyrian invasion fleet. As the transmission ended, long-range sensors detected movement throughout human space. Ships that had been hidden for decades began to emerge from concealment. Bases built inside distant asteroids activated their communication arrays. The true scope of human expansion became visible for the first time. Admiral Kethavar watched the broadcast from his prison cell, finally understanding the full magnitude of his failure. Earth hadn't been a target at all. It had been a trap, designed to eliminate threats before they could grow too large. "Your species is remarkable," he said to Captain Anderson, who had remained to watch the president's speech. "We're survivors," Paul replied simply. "And we've learned that sometimes the best defense is to make sure your enemies never get the chance to attack." The broadcast reached the Zephyrian homeworld 12 hours later. The alien government received not only President Davis's speech, but also a detailed list of their military capabilities, base locations, and strategic weaknesses, all compiled from interrogating the captured invasion force. The message that accompanied this intelligence was brief and direct. The Zephyrian Empire could surrender peacefully or face the same fate as their invasion fleet. They chose surrender. Within a month, the galaxy had learned a new lesson. Humanity had emerged from apparent isolation to become the dominant military power in their region of space. Species that had never heard of Earth suddenly found human ambassadors appearing at their worlds, offering trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Admiral Kethavar spent his remaining years in comfortable captivity, writing detailed accounts of the battle for human military historians. He died knowing that he had been part of the moment when humanity announced itself to the galaxy. The species that had seemed so primitive, so weak, so helpless, had been planning their emergence for longer than most civilizations had existed. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.